Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the wrong show. Look at that. Start off the show right here. Welcome to Striving to Thriving, where we redefine success. And this show is all about the journeys that we are taking to discover how we've had to redefine success in our lives and what thriving really means to us. And so we're going to share some stories, some insights, fresh perspectives, something that maybe will inspire you to take a look at your life. And for all of you listening, I am so glad you're here. We are going to be diving in with our guests today, and we're just going to have a meaningful conversation about how we've had to redefine success in our own lives. And I'm your host. I'm Barbara Ellison. I'm founder of Total Wellness Playroom for the best living, your best version of your life. And I am a health and wellness advocate for late career business professionals who are facing retirement and they want to thrive in retirement. So I'm just so excited to have my guest hosts here tonight, Gail and Catherine. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the show. I was privileged to be on their podcast that they're going to tell you about their podcast. And I am so glad that I've invited them to here. So who are you? What do you do? All that kind of stuff. And take it away.
Hello, Barbara. Thanks so much for having us and for allowing our guests to come on too. We're looking forward to a great conversation with all of you. It's going to be fun. And I am Gail Zelitzky. This is my fifth entrepreneurial business, womenover70.com. I started it with Catherine Marienau, who you can see right there. And we started it in 2019. And we have been going strong ever since. Catherine, why don't you tell them what Women Over 70 is and who you are?
Well, I'm Catherine Marienau, and I was on the full-time faculty at DePaul University for 35 years or so, and have always worked with innovative higher education for adult learners, mostly women. And the opportunity to create Women Over 70, Aging Reimagined, came from a relationship that Gail and I had established. She was a student in our master's program. I was her academic mentor, and we always talked about change and creativity, and those are Gail's particular interests. And we decided, and we always talked about women's issues. So we said, we've got to do something. We can't just sit around here talking about it. So Gail said, yes, we're going to do a podcast. Or she said she was going to do a podcast. And I said, well, I want to do that too. So that was back in 2018, actually, when we got started.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. And okay. And Judi Schindler. Judi, I'm happy to have you. We're happy to have you here on this show with us. And why don't you tell us who you are and were and what you're doing now?
Okay. So I, for more than 40 years, was a public relations and marketing consultant here in Chicago. As I got a little bit older, I realized I was going to have to change what I was going to do. Now, this was when I was in my 60s. So it was really before the whole era of media changed. And I didn't know it, but I knew I was getting older, and I was not sure whether I would be able to continue to bring in enough business to support a staff of 10 with very high paid rent. So I looked around to see if I could merge my business. And sometime in my 60s, I did merger with another PR professional who I really respected as a writer. She'd been a business writer for a couple of different publications in Chicago. But what it turned out was she was not a very good business person. Anyhow, we made an arrangement. She took over my staff. She continued to pay me about a percentage of the business that I brought into her. And she took over the whole overhead, which was a big relief for me.
So Judi, what are you doing now? Who are you now? We'll get more into this story a little bit later, and we'd like to hear from Pamela too.
Okay, so today I'm an actor and a writer.
Right.
And I have some interesting things going in both categories.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Well, I'm delighted to introduce Pamela Meyer. This is another DePaul University connection. Pamela and I worked together for many years doing some innovative community-based projects for DePaul. And so I'll let Pamela tell you about herself, but she is a guest, as Judi has been a guest on our podcast. Pamela was an advocate for women aging because she doesn't quite meet the 70 and older criteria. So we're delighted to have you, Pamela. And I want to make sure you talk about your books and your skiing, because that's where you seem to be right now.
Yes. Well, the short version is that I work with leaders, teams, and organizations that need to be more agile and resilient. And that's the core of my professional work. And that's, as you know, Catherine has spanned everything from early roots in the theater as a director and producer, and many years teaching adult students, and also continuing to work in the business sector. And yes, am also. I heard a friend refer to herself being a late onset skier, and I think that that fits me, though. I'm a late onset master ski racer, so
Wow.
I'm out here in Colorado, following my dreams, and also doing my client work as well remotely. But I compete with the Rocky Mountain Masters, and just came back from injury, so I had my first race last week, and I'm on the comeback trail and really living my best life.
Injuries match that, Pamela.
Yeah, hell, hey, it happens.
Oh,
That is so awesome. Cool story, Pamela. That's great. Yeah. So cool beans. All right. So let's talk. Let's talk about our stories. We all have a backstory. I'll kind of start with mine. Mine happened. Change comes to us for many reasons. It's either forced on us, or it's voluntary, and sometimes it's a little bit of both. For myself, my husband passed away. And I realized when I woke up from my widow's fog that I had no idea of who I was outside of all the labels that I had put on myself, of being a daughter and being a wife, and then being a mother, and then being a divorced failure, but then being a successful wife again, and then being a business owner, and now I'm a widow. Who is Barbara in all of that? And that's when I realized, all right, something's got to give. Here I was, 61 years old, and what am I going to do for the rest of my life? But that sparked the change, and that has been the blessing. The journey has brought me to here today, because I love hearing everybody else's stories of where they were when they knew something in their life had to change. And it can be a business thing, it can be a personal thing. And sometimes you get it early. Sometimes, like in my case, wasn't until I was in my 60s, and I realized that I was living my life through someone else's lens. And I knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. So that has brought me here to have other people share their stories of redefining success. What does success mean to you? So who wants to go first? Gail, you were here first.
So thanks.
Share with us.
Well, that's a great story, Barbara. And we share many things in common, you and I, especially the divorced and the widowed, and, the widow's fog and all of that. But I have had so many vignettes in my life. That's how I like to speak about them. I've had so many vignettes in my life, and some I excelled at beautifully, and others I failed at miserably. And so I'd been in the liquor business for 23 years, the last 4 building Liquor by Wire and liquor.com, when we realized that we could not continue without funding. And so we couldn't get traditional funding because of the nature of the liquor business. And when someone said to us, well, you've been operating 4 years, you're a multi-million-dollar business, you're profitable, you're really a good candidate for taking you public. And we decided, okay, let's do that. And so off we went on this joyride. to learn everything you had to learn in order to do that, to pitch, in order to attract investors. And it was quite a merry-go-round. And my son and I were in this business together, and we navigated it as well as we could. The agent was great. He got us investors. 2 days from now, we were going to be listed on the NASDAQ exchange. And we were going to come out as a public company, had gotten our value up as high as it needed to be in order to do this. And we were thrilled. We were flying high. We were taking private planes. We were riding in limousines. We were just having the time of our lives. And then what? The agent called and he says, I can't finish this deal. The investors are pulling out like crazy. I think it's over. And we looked at each other and we said, what? How is this possible? It was 1999, 2000. You remember those years. They were the years of the crazy dot-com successes and failures. Our business totally imploded. We looked at each other. We had ramped up from 3 people to 23 people. It just totally imploded, and we looked at each other. We couldn't pay the rent. We couldn't do anything. All these big shot guys moved on as fast as they could. And there we were. And so we looked at each other. We said, close the office, close the business. There's nothing else we can do. And then it was, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And I decided, I had experience working with startups, working my own startup, and working in a very mature business for many, many years, my father's business. And I said, you know what, I'm going to take these skills and I'm going to help entrepreneurs grow. I'm going to teach them marketing, and I'm going to coach them into everything they need to know to never wind up in the same situation that we wound up in. And I did that for 25 years until I met Catherine. And then...
Your business imploded, huh?
Yep. No, the second one. Actually, it was my 4th entrepreneurial business, and it did not implode. But we decided, this is what we're going to do. We're going to create Women Over 70. And we've been reframing aging and helping people understand how older people should be looked at in the marketplace. And really, it's all of our guests, our 310 guests or so, who are telling their stories, like Pamela, like Judi, who tell their stories and inspire our listeners to know that age is not anything to worry about and that it's only a number.
Exactly.
I heard more details from you, Gail, than I've heard before, and I've known you for 10 years or more.
I've known her longer, and I didn't know that whole story.
Hang around, Catherine.
Yes. Well, I'll go next, I guess. I think it's about I'm going to go back about 6 years ago when this pivot started, and had been, as I mentioned, I'd been working at DePaul University for several decades, and I've been in higher education for adults for over 50 years, and I was getting close to 70, and I thought I would continue to work full-time at DePaul for probably another 4 years. And then things shifted. The landscape in higher education shifted. The leadership at DePaul changed. The things that I had been working on and developing for all those years were suddenly called into question, and we were some of the faculty were invited to leave, to take a buyout. So there I was, almost 70, thinking, wow, I'm not ready for this yet. But I knew I didn't want to stay. It just was not fitting with my values, with everything I'd worked to build. And I thought so I will leave. And I took the 2-year buyout. And I was very afraid of retirement because I didn't know. I thought, I can't take that year that people recommend and just explore and try to figure out. I don't want to have that, what Bridges calls the neutral zone. I don't want that. I want to move into some things very right away. And so I actually, before I even left DePaul, Gail and I started working on women over 70, which has been the highlight of my life. And I've gotten very involved in my community in terms of end of life options and helping to provide a good environment for older people in our community.
Mm-hmm.
So that all has been incredibly satisfying. And I thought, what have I been doing these last 50 years that I want to continue to do? How do I want to bring that forward? And it was women, things about advancing the status and women. And as a mentor, what I did was listen. I did a lot of listening, a lot of sort of mentoring, coaching, challenging, nurturing. I thought I like that, and I love listening to people's stories. So, and I have a lot of background in doing qualitative research, so interviewing is part of that. And I want to write, but I want to write not in the usual academic style that I'm used to. I want to learn how to write personal and in a more compelling way, as Gail and I we have a book contract, so we'll have a chance to.
Yay.
Right.
And so this is I think Pamela, somebody said you're living your best life. I feel like I am living my best life. My life is full. I'm engaged in a variety of things. It just feels great every day to get up and say, "Ooh, I get to work on this," or "I get to see these people," or this morning I was at a legacy writing group, and I love that, learning to tell our very personal stories.
Yeah.
So it's a good place to be. And also I'm very, I like movements. I like social movements. And that's what I was doing in higher education. And now I'm focusing on aging and women aging and combating ageism and just making this world more hospitable for women as we age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. So, yeah, that's great. I know all about your story.
Oh, this is, did I leave anything out?
No, you are living a wonderful life. You really are. One of the things you said when you were planning to retire was you wanted to get more active in your community.
Mm-hmm.
And your action in your community has really helped women over 70 a lot. And you just having a great time with it. It's clear. It's nice to see. So Judi, tell us about your story now.
I'm sorry, I sort of jumped into it. I didn't realize we were doing
no problem.
To go back, as I said, I've done public relations and marketing for more than 40 years. I reached my 60s, and the kind of PR I did really depended on knowing people in the media, going to parties, doing a lot of events. And I realized I might not have had as long a shelf life in this career as I thought. And that I didn't know whether, when I needed new equipment, should I invest in new equipment? How long could I stay in business? How long could I support that kind of overhead? So I did look and merge my business with somebody else. She took over the overhead, and I just made a nice commission on the business that I brought in and continued to do the work. And that was really good except I had to pivot several times. So at our first staff meeting, I've been in business for over 40 years, and this was in the joint company. And I started to say something, and this woman who I'd merged, we'll call her Susie, put her head on the table. I thought, oh my God. I said to her, you didn't think I was going to have to say anything? And I was just going to give you my clients? Well, apparently she tried, but it was just not easy for her. So I realized at that point that I needed a new identity. I was still working, but I needed a new identity. And I thought about maybe taking a photography class or a pottery class. But as a kid, I'd always loved acting. So I started to take acting classes. And one thing led to another, and I started auditioning, and I got headshots, and an agent approached me, and I wasn't quite ready because I was still working full time. But as my book of business started to dwindle, I was only working part time, and I went back to that agent and started booking commercials and booking myself into plays and became an actor. Now, that was in my 60s. Now, I'm 83. I've had to pivot a few times since then, but I don't want to take the whole stage. But, today, at 83, I am still doing some commercials, some film work.
Wow.
A lot of auditions, especially since with the white hair, they like that white hair. And I've also been writing. I had never written anything but public relations releases and brochures and website content in my professional life, but I always wanted to write plays. So I started to, first I wrote my own. I wrote a performance piece that I did for women's organizations, country clubs and business clubs. And I did that for several years until COVID hit. And then there were no more meetings. I wrote a book about that as well. And then I started to write during COVID plays. And I'm very excited that in April, there's a little theater here in Chicago that's going to produce 5 of my one-act plays.
Yay!
And I'm going to do a monologue for that too. I also, Catherine, have been trying to do some more personal writing. I took a memoir writing class, and I'm going to do a solo show writing class starting next week. So, yeah.
Cool.
Great.
Kudos to you, Judi. Because I think so often one of the things that people find that I find with people is that they think, well, I'm too old to do that. Well, you know what? Okay, well, but you're never too old. You're only too old the day you die.
There's a difference between 60 and 80.
Yes.
There does have to be some modifications
Right.
as you go along. I'm not crazy about doing theater as much I love theater, because they stay out late. Shows don't end till 10. I like to be in bed at 10. There has to be continued modifications. I don't think one retirement is it. I think you can keep reinventing retirement based on your changing needs.
Yeah. Cool beans. Love that, Judi. Yeah.
So, Pamela, let's hear your pivot story.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The word pivot doesn't resonate with me as much as evolution, and I realized a big reason for that is when I was a child, a teenager, my father left very abruptly, and it was essentially like that Talking Head song. He woke up and who is this? You're not my beautiful wife. Who is this? Not my beautiful home, and literally like the life he had created wasn't the life he wanted, and it was such an abrupt shift that it threw everybody around him into a tailspin. And it was such a lesson for me early in life that I didn't ever want to live a life where that I had to wake up from, that I discovered, what have I done? This isn't what I want. So for me, my life has really been about continuing to follow where the energy is and where I'm still learning, where I'm engaged. And that really evolved from my work directing and producing theater to really getting interested in group dynamics and the creative process, which led to an interdisciplinary master's degree, which led to teaching at DePaul and really loving the work I was doing with adult students, bringing some of the things I was doing in improvisational rehearsal halls into the adult learning classroom, which led to adult students saying, hey, we could really use this in our organization. Could you put something together for my company? Which led to really an explosion in my consulting and training business. And that really led me to a curiosity. At that point, I was teaching with a master's degree, but I was very curious to go deeper because I was seeing so many stories of personal transformation as people were learning to improvise. So I went on and did a doctorate following that curiosity to discover more about what is it that about adults learning to improvise that's so transformative. And that evolved into writing several books on learning and innovation and agility. And all of that work continues to be very engaging. I feel like I've brought all of the things I love into the next evolution. So I never feel like I ever left the theater so much as took what I loved from it and brought it into my current work. And then for me, it's not so much a pivot, but when I turned 50, I was, it's just one of those reflective times thinking about, is there anything from my past where I was really engaged that I've let go of just by attrition that I maybe want to revisit? And that's when, I realized, I haven't skied in 20 plus years, mostly because when I got out of college, I was too broke to continue to ski and, work in the arts and do the other things I was doing. But, those constraints weren't there anymore. And I really worked to get back into it, to find ski clubs, ski people. It's at 50, it's hard to get everybody in a station wagon and go out to Colorado like I used to do when we were teenagers or in our 20s. So you have to be more intentional about embracing something new. And I raced a little bit in high school. Never had a lot of coaching, but it was a passion of mine. And when I got into some open public races, that I was bit by the bug again. But one of the things that I was worried about, and I started doing some training camps when I got back into ski racing, was, I'm going to be one of the oldest people out there. I've got so much more to learn. The equipment has changed so much since I used to race. And when I got out there, what I loved was I was one of the youngest people. There were people in their 60s, 70s, even 80s. In fact, last week when I raced, our oldest male racer was 91. Our oldest female was 76, and they look pretty good out there. So that was transformative for me to see that there's a whole world and there's a pathway. This doesn't have an expiration date. But I was also curious because I'm a researcher and an author. I started informally interviewing people to find out, what is it that keeps you in this? Everything from racing on these rinky-dink little 300-foot verticals out in Colorado where I am now. What keeps you coming out when it's 20 below, when the conditions are terrible, and you still get out of bed and get to your training and get to these races? And that the answers to those questions became my most recent book, which is Staying in the Game, Leading and Learning with Agility for a Dynamic Future. And the biggest thing I discovered was that in addition to it becoming so much part of people's identity, which is what I hear from all of us, that our identity is really connected to our passion and how we see ourselves in the world. But that identity comes to life in community and is co-constructed in community. And the things that would get people out of bed on those crazy below zero days was the camaraderie. And, my friends are out there and I don't want to let them down, and I want to see them and I want to be part of it. So if we're all freezing out there at the top of the, in the start area in our little Lycra race suits, we're going to be doing it together, and it's going to be a great story. And then we're going to all meet afterwards and have some fun together. So there's such a commitment to continuous learning and truly staying connected. And to me, that's the hallmark of all of our stories. That there's a through line of continuous learning and exploration and engagement and finding and seeking out others in community. That
collaboration is just
yes, thank you, Judi. Yeah, exactly.
It's
And I think all of us are thinking, oh, what can I do next? What's next? Like I'm liking doing this, but what next? Or what can I add to this? Or who can I add to this? To my little circle of doing what I love to do? Because there's 8 billion people out on the planet. I can't be the only one that likes doing this. And And I think that's what it is so important, and that's why you're great. I mean, we're all doing it, and we're giving people and I think, don't you think it's sometimes we have to give people permission to do something different than what they've always been doing?
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things I love about everybody's story is that in addition to following each of your own curiosity, that then does become a role model for others. So while, I raced with a woman who's in her mid 80s, and, she has people in their 60s saying, I want to be like you when I grow up, and I'm an inspiration for people that are younger than me. So there's that sense of, while we're living our own best lives, we're inspiring others to do the same.
Right.
Very true.
I was thinking, Pamela, while you were talking, how lucky I was to be able to take a class from you when I was going for my master's at DePaul. And you are just in class like you are here today, and so inspiring.
Thank you.
And I think all of us too is just being our authentic selves. You get to I have gotten, for myself, I've gotten to the age now where if somebody doesn't like something that I'm doing, it's their issue, not mine.
I do think that there are some good habits,
right,
as you get older, that, and I'm not talking just about health and wellness, but I'm talking about things like staying up with technology, getting rid of excess things in your life, downsizing and getting rid of all that extra baggage, and staying in touch with people, having younger friends. I think those are all things that help you past your retirement years, inspire you.
Yeah. And one of the things that's been really helpful for me too, even, I'm spending more and more time out in Colorado in stretches of several weeks at a time, and then going back to Chicago. And it's daunting in the sense that my wife doesn't ski, and she's mostly holding down the fort in Chicago, and I move around to different spaces, and I'm definitely still a creature of habit. I like comfort and my familiar things, but this requires a lot of travel and driving in the mountains and all kinds of weather and at night. And but so it's pushed a lot of boundaries. But one of the things that Carol, my wife, and I have talked about is just think of it as an experiment. Like and almost every increment of it can be an experiment. And there's nothing that can't be undone. There's nothing that says I can't pack up the car and drive back home or fly home, or that. But to approach it as, let me see what I'm going to learn and see how it is. It doesn't have to go right. There's no right or wrong. Let me just see how it goes and what I learn, and maybe I'll discover this is what I want to do more of, or just as important, I might discover I want to do less of this, or I want to do it differently next time. So that lowers stakes in terms of trying new things and exploring things is to just think of it as an experiment.
Pamela, you made me think about this conversation's made me think about how freeing it is to not be working in an institutional setting, which I've done for over 50 years. And while there's tremendous benefits to that, and the kind of work I did was we were able to keep experimenting with things, but it was also constraining. And so what I love now is I have time to read, to listen to other people's webinars, to work on projects that I really didn't have time for, or I was just sort of trying to push into some very limited space, and it took the joy out of it. And so what you're talking about is it resonates with me. It's what keeps me curious. What am I really passionate about? What is it's probably overused, but what does bring me joy in what I'm doing, and how can it benefit other people in various ways?
I was thinking about yesterday that Women Over 70 has a monthly Aging Reimagined Circle program that we put on Zoom. And yesterday, Barbara Adler, who has a photography book called Pathways, she has two actually, one is Passages and one is Pathways, So she was our monthly program, and she had one photograph in particular that was of a path in a forest, and you could see the path going somewhere. And thinking about what you were saying, Pamela, about life is really an experiment, or everything we do is an experiment. That path meant to me, and she was asking us all what did her pictures, her photographs mean to you. That path meant to me that there is much more adventure to be had, that life is to be lived, that we don't know what's coming around the corner, but that shouldn't stop us from moving on and making the most of life while we have it, and what we and doing what we can with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a through line, and I know, Catherine, you've been very involved in this, and Judi, I've seen this in your story too, is the intentionality of both finding community and also actively taking responsibility to co-create that community. And I think, not just to be a consumer and just to show up and see what you can get from it. I mean, sometimes we show up a few times just to see if it's a fit. But I know each of you have stepped up in different ways, and I have to join boards, to think about, if this is a community that I resonate with, or where there's some real engagement, how can I be part of sustaining it, and being sure I'm welcoming other people in, and building on that experience. And I think it's honestly especially true when we have communities of aging populations, because there's a natural attrition. I mean, there is either people start dropping out, especially in a really active, high demand sport like ski racing. We have to always not only be celebrating our older participants, but expanding and being sure that we're bringing in new people. And so I love this idea of radical hospitality, and it comes from our Catholics might remind me of Saint. It's not for St. Francis, but at any rate, this sense of really welcoming the stranger, and boy, it couldn't be more important now than any other time in our cultural history. But that's something I really have seen, and I feel like is a big part of staying engaged.
Absolutely. No question about it.
And sometimes for me, I think it's, what can we do to add value to somebody else in either teaching them something or whatever that is. And it's just because we can, just because we can, not because we're wanting something back from them.
Or just sometimes reaching out to someone who's in need.
Yes. Just saying hi, just smiling at somebody, and they go, oh, hi. And we've lost that art of just being casual with people. And I think so much of it is because we're doing this on our phones, and I'm guilty of it. Absolutely. But just once in a while, just walk down the street and smile at the people that are going by you.
I think we're all talking in one way or another about the power of story. And Judi, as an actor and a playwright and one woman show, you are sharing your own story, and you're inviting people to enter into all of that work. Pamela, your books have a lot of story, especially the Staying in the Game. Really compelling stories of people who have learned how to adapt and pivot. And Gail, we of course, Women Over 70. That's what we are. It's about a platform for women's stories.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I like this notion of co-creating that you mentioned, Pamela, because we can't operate in a vacuum. It doesn't work to do that. And especially when you have something that is of interest or that you care about, you don't want to do that alone either. It's always a matter of, who can I bring into this with me, or who can I join who's already doing it, and how can I participate and be more than just me alone, certainly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think there's a proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together, go with
Mhm.
others.
I love that.
And I have found that to be so true. To be part of, like for me, it's I'm in the wellness community, and all of us are striving to see the new technology that's coming out, and now finally science is catching up and proving the stuff that we've been saying for 40 years. And it's so nice when you can get validation. Doesn't matter where it's coming from, but the validation that what you have been doing or telling people, it's actually, oh wow. Oh, I actually say that now. And like for me, I can actually say that I feel better now at 75 than I did at 42. And that has been powerful for me. And people say to me, well, Barb, well, why did you just drive to Texas by yourself? Well, because I could. You know, I stopped in Tulsa, but it's like, you're 75 years old. Why are you going to take such a long trip? I said, well, because we're going out to St. George and I'm meeting two friends. And what, and oh, really? Yeah, because I can. Go do it. Don't worry about what other people are saying. I always try to tell my clients, do the things that make your heart sing. It doesn't matter if somebody beside you is singing to a different song. Find the one that wants to sing with you or similar to you. That's where we've all talked about community. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I liked what Judi said about staying up with technology.
Mm-hmm.
Such a misnomer that once people get into their 70s and 80s, they don't keep up with technology. They do. And
Not everybody.
not everybody.
Not
No,
everybody.
many
I do
people.
a little problem with scrolling down, but it's okay.
I'm always amazed at some of the women in their 80s and even 90s that we have on our show, women over 70, and how they are, turning on Zoom and getting on and looking great and being capable with it all. It doesn't bother them in the least.
You know, as an actor, I have to self-tape auditions. I have to edit them. I have to upload them to various different websites. Yeah. I'm doing it.
Do it, yeah.
Right.
Of course, I did screw up something today, but it's okay.
Oh no, I never screw up. No.
Hey, I started the show with the wrong name. That's like, yeah. But now I think I have learned to laugh about it. Life happens.
That's right.
Things happen. And you just now I don't worry about it. It's like, oh well, yeah, that happened. One time I had a virtual background, and one time my cat knocked over the virtual background in the middle of an international podcast. And friends of mine said, what did you do? I said, I laughed. What could you do? It was live. Laugh. And then just go on. But were you afraid for it to be happening again? I said, well, if it happened again, I would laugh then too.
Right.
And I think that's what comes of just being so in tune with who we are and being comfortable in our own skins and going, hey, you know what? Age is a number. It's just a number on a calendar. And we can do whatever we want to do. So,
And it's risk. I mean,
right.
Isn't that what you talk about in your books, Pamela? Risk. Being willing to take a risk.
Yeah.
And
I think we have more freedom for risk, don't we? I mean, hopefully financially, we've got some kind of an income, so you're not risking your whole financial background to do something. If it doesn't work, well, you've had successes in your life that back you up. I think you should be willing to take more risks as you get older.
And I think with that, and this to me is what you're alluding to, Barbara, is holding our identities more lightly and not taking ourselves as seriously. And so that I know earlier in my career, especially transitioning largely from an arts-based background into a business background, I was always really conscious of how I showed up and if people would take me seriously. And that's just, I don't worry about that anymore. You know, I bring my credentials, my integrity, but just show up to being myself. And I think that people resonate with that more than when we were striving or really working hard to project some kind of image that probably was wasted energy then too.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, wow, this has been such a great conversation. I mean, I know we could go on for hours just giving and sharing stories and stuff, but we do have to kind of go forward. And so, just would like to share some final words with everybody. So, who wants to start? And let's share with people how, and I'll be sharing with everybody how people can get in touch with everybody else. And I would just really encourage everybody to get in touch with the women here, especially if you have a desire in your heart that is saying, ooh, I wonder if I could do that. Know that you can.
Well, I'd be happy anybody talk to anybody that was interested in theater or acting or even modeling.
And we, as women over 70, would love to give anyone a free year membership. We're giving away a free year membership to Women Over 70's Aging Reimagined Circle, a year of monthly programs, no cost. And the first person to let us know they want to be a member, that's the person who gets the membership.
What a great value.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm just always interested in connecting with people that are interested in continuing to be or to be more agile and resilient. And particularly I work with people in business settings, but also in community-based organizations. And best way to reach me is either my website, pamela-meyer.com, or my LinkedIn profile is there. You can certainly just search Pamela Meyer, PhD, and in LinkedIn, and you'll find your way to me. But and then, of course, really interested. A lot of the themes that I've talked about are captured in my book, Staying in the Game, Leading and Learning with Agility for a Dynamic Future. So lots of resources out there from all of us.
Just one more thing about Women over 70, Aging Reimagined is, again, the Aging Reimagined Circle, but our episodes are free. They're on you can get them on any place you listen to podcasts, and we're on YouTube, or you can go to our website and the episodes are there. And it's just an incredible array of inspiring, engaged women in all different aspects of life. And we don't sugarcoat the hardships that women have confronted, but we are very much in your theme, Barbara. So, and where are you now, and how have you navigated this, and what's going forward? You know, how do you see yourself going forward? And I was thinking about identity. You know, I've read a lot about you are who you've always been, and yet we can continue to shift and grow. And I think this notion of what do we want to keep playing forward from who we are and what we care about, and then how can it look different? How can we do that differently?
Right. And just, yeah, absolutely. It's just because, you know, there's other people out there who are looking for what you have. And that's one of the reasons I started this show, is because I truly believe that each and every one of us deserves to lead a happy, healthy, debt-free, abundant life. Well, in order for us to do that, I personally, we all have business, we all have bills to pay, we all have services that we can offer, but people want, you just look for the people who want what you have to offer. But in order to do that, they have to know who you are, what you do, and why you do it. And that I have loved all of your comments and just they coming from your heart of why you do what you do, because it impacted not only your life, but the lives of people going forward. And somebody listening to this right now, they might not see it for themselves right this instant, but you know what? 2 months from now, they might, or a year from now, they might, and go, gee, I listened to that with all those women were older, and boy, you know, just because I'm getting older doesn't mean I have to stop doing stuff. And it's when in that moment when people go, oh, I can do this too. And it's when I love when I see people get to that. Anyway, so a 1 second final word, ladies, each one of you.
I would just say, don't listen to the naysayers who say, you're 75, you're supposed to be retired. Why are you working so hard? And I say, I am engaged in what I love and what brings me great joy, and feel like I'm part of the world. So that's it.
I would say you can keep evolving after retirement. It doesn't mean that you're retiring to one thing, but to many things. It's really important.
And for me, it's follow your curiosity and follow where your energy is. That will continue to grow and evolve and change. And then find communities. They may be formal, or they may simply be, putting it out to friends that I'm interested in this, or I'm exploring this. But there's so many formal groups or informal meetup groups that, just as you were saying at the top of the show, Barbara, there's going to be other people out there that share your curiosity or passion, and it's a great way to discover more and to sustain your engagement in what's next.
And I would just say, if you're stuck, a tiny shift in perspective can make all the difference in how you think. You can do it.
Right. And I think for me is never, we've all touched on it and talked about it. Never stop learning. Never stop learning. It could be a skill or a language or an art form. I think I might have to look into that. Just because that would be a fun thing to do.
Yes,
So,
and
That's right.
That caught my attention, and that's one of the why I love these kinds of show, because it's a conversation about gee, I might be able to do that. And if you can spark one seed in one person, then it's been a successful show. Because they can see, because that one seed might grow into a full-grown tree.
And just going back to your notion about striving to thriving, I think we all need to remember that our journeys are unique to us. What is success for us may be different from someone else, and so we want to support each other and share what we have. But we grow more different from each other as we get older. So we're not this homogeneous group. And there's no right model, as I think you're suggesting, Barbara. There's no right way to be or to do things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I just have to say thank you so much, ladies. This has been an absolutely amazing conversation. For myself, I'm Barbara Ellison. If you want to reach out to me, I'm founder of Wellness Playroom, for the best version of your life. The other thing is that if you would like to come on this show as a co-host, the same way that Gail and Catherine did, bring your own panel of people to talk about how from striving to thriving, how you have taken your life from a piece of that, oh yeah, what am I going to do, to, this is what I'm doing, and now I can help other people do the same thing. So if you want to do that, please feel free to reach out to me. You can put that's a LinkedIn, it's not a LinkedIn, it's a calendar that you can, and we can talk show dates, we can talk details. It might be for you, it might not be. That's entirely, but you might want to just be curious about, could I do it? And it is fun. Would you agree, all of you, that it's a fun conversation? And so I'm all about having fun with people. So,
and thanks to Judi and Pamela for being with us today.
Well, really, thanks to all of you. Fun to see you all.
Yeah. So everybody, have an awesome day. Have an awesome day, and make it a meaningful day, whatever that means to you. So, because, let's make happiness the norm rather than the exception. So I just want to thank everybody for coming. Have a great day. We'll
Thank
talk
you,
to you soon.
Barbara.
See you next time.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.